Hello, and thank you to everyone tuning in to today's episode of the Hirewell Update. I'm your host, Ryan Brown, Vice President of our Corporate Functions team, and this is my co-host.
I'm Emily Gore, Director on our go-to-market recruiting team.
Before we kick off the show, you can find all of our content at talentinsights.hirewell.com, or if you'd like to learn more about Hirewell and our service offerings, check out our website, www.hirewell.com. It's been an interesting start to the year, to say the least. There's been a lot that's happened, a lot that's happening. So we have a lot to go over today. And I think what we want to focus on in terms of today's episode is what we're seeing in our respective focus areas, you for go-to-market, me for corporate functions, and also how it's comparing to Q1 of last year. So I want you to kick us off. What trends are you currently seeing in go-to-market?
Yes, I know. We're like you said, we're focusing today on go-to-market and corporate functions. That's really our areas of expertise. So just to remind you, Hirewell has other areas. We have a fabulous team of tech recruiters, fabulous team that's focused on industrial recruiting, et cetera. But like if you wanted to hire an engineer, like you would not want me doing that for you, which is why we have these specialized areas. So we send you to our tech team. So I'll focus, like you said, on go-to-market. That is what I know, I live, I breathe. Seriously, we are really busy. Like that, just like plain and simple, to put it very, very straightforward. Go-to-market teams are hiring, right? Because we are crazy busy. So this is actually kind of a solid continuation of what we were already seeing in Q4 of last year. Our January numbers just officially came in, and our go-to-market team achieved over 100% of our monthly goal, which was the highest attainment like across our practices. We were over 100%. I think one of the major differences though that we are seeing from like Q3 and Q4 of 2024 to Q1 of this year is the rise in demand of marketing positions. I think we're currently seeing a lot in content marketing, a rise in like design roles actually, which we hadn't seen in a bit. But honestly, really marketing is up across the board. So even outside of those two areas.
Great to hear.
I'd say in terms of sales, which is like kind of what I live and breathe a little bit more. I know I actually already said this on the show this year, but we're seeing a huge uptick in customer success manager roles. We did not see a lot of CSM roles last year, like honestly at all, until like Q4, which is very rare for us. Usually it's a very market center position. Last year, I think we saw companies were investing more in like the net new revenue side of their business. And we're still seeing that this year. I'll kind of get to that in a little bit. But with now the influx of those new customers that they invested in last year, companies are now needing to invest in taking care of and retaining those existing clients. Right. So we're seeing CSM roles now than we've seen in a while. We have like multiple on our desk at the moment that we're looking to fill across the country. And as I mentioned, we are still seeing companies investing in like net new logo side of the business. We have so many open account executive positions right now. We're seeing a lot of mid-market, I would say, but it's really across the board from SMB to enterprise. And we're actually seeing, which is interesting, a bit of an uptick in SDR and BDR positions. We saw less. I know, it's nice. We saw less like sales development and business development representative positions last year. And instead, companies were hiring just AEs that were like, you need to prospect also. Like we don't have SDR support. But it seems like SDR roles are coming back a bit to give AEs like that support. And honestly, it's a really good selling point for candidates. Like AE candidates frequently ask us like, in terms of prospecting, what does SDR support look like? It's a good sell for companies. I don't know. I feel like industry wise, maybe to share that, like we've seen things across a ton of different industries. We're working as always with a lot of software as a service companies, a few very early stage. I'm working on some founding roles right now, some more established, and then seeing a lot in financial services and even retail. I know we have like a huge retail project going on. I know that was a lot. I'm sure I missed so much too, because like you said, so much has happened in the first, like it's almost months because we're filming this at the very end of February. You tell me though, what's going on? That was kind of go-to-market side of the business. What are you seeing on the corporate functions side of things?
It's been an interesting start to the year for us on the corporate function side. Not in a bad way, just it's exciting It's interesting. Yes, it's new, it's fresh, it's all of those things. And I will say Q1 of 2025 looks drastically different than it did in 2024. I say this frequently when I talk about corporate functions roles. Accounting and finance is housed under my team as well as administrative roles and HR, but F&A roles tend to remain pretty in demand throughout the year. This is one of those skill sets that just tends to be highly sought after kind of any point within the year. We've talked about in the past just kind of the bottleneck that we've seen in the talent market with these skill sets. Less people are going into these programs in undergrad, which is, basically creating like the super tight market for accounting and finance professionals. And we're seeing that continue to decrease like year over year, but the skill set remains super in demand. I think that what's most interesting are some of the trends that we're seeing across HR. So in 2024, most of the work we did was in true HR generalist positions. So for those that aren't familiar, HR generalists are folks that touch like every single aspect of the people function. So thinking all things employee benefits, recruitment, talent performance, total rewards. They house all HR functions within their skill set. We saw a lot of those last year, which makes sense because many organizations were trying to do more with less. So having somebody that can touch all facets of the people function was important then. We hardly saw any specialized positions in HR. But this year, we're seeing a little bit of a shift. So generalist positions are still in high demand. They kind of always are in terms of the HR skill set, but still an increase in demand for those. But we're also seeing some of those specialized positions start to come back, which is super exciting. And when I say specialized positions, it's like recruiting. Yay. If you've been in talent acquisition or recruiter, the last couple of years have been super hard for people in those roles. They've been really impacted. So it's so exciting to see recruiting roles finally coming back. We've also seen some learning and development positions, total rewards, and some others too. We're currently working, and this is what I think is like a really interesting fact. We're currently working on more recruiter positions right now in this current month than we did all of 2024. So that's an insane increase. I think last year in total, we worked on less than 10 positions all of 2024 in terms of true recruiter positions. So to say we're working on more than that this quarter and in this month alone, I think is really exciting.
That's
And
wild.
it's wild. It's absolutely wild. There was a moment where I was like, are we ever going to recruit on a recruiting role ever again? This is crazy. We just like don't see them anymore. But typically this tends to mean that when we're seeing like an increase in talent acquisition roles, the market is in for some pretty positive momentum. When companies are hiring talent to bring in talent, that's typically a pretty good sign of things. Same with some of the other specialized positions though. Like this typically echoes growth for organizations. They're leading teams, wanting to scale, become more focused, provide extra support. So we're seeing some really positive movement and growth, which is super exciting. Outside of that, we're seeing an increase in contract roles. This has also risen dramatically since 2024. That project-based support in corporate functions is at a high compared to this time last year. This increase, I think, in both the interim support, so consultant type positions, and then permanent openings should be, I think, pretty interesting in terms of the momentum we're seeing now moving into Q2. I'm hopeful that this means this is going to be a big year for hiring, that organizations are like looking to grow, looking to scale. But it's interesting to see this type of movement in early Q1 because that typically doesn't happen. So that's why I'm feeling pretty positive about the direction the job market's going this year.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm personally really happy to hear that you guys are seeing more in specialized areas of HR.
Mm,
Because I mean, obviously, like you said, like that's a good sign for the market if
it
companies
is.
are hiring people to hire people.
Mhm.
Always a good sign. And like, we're seeing the same signs of that because we are so busy.
Mhm.
But even when you said like L&D, like we talked so much. I remember so frequently it came up last year that companies were divesting and learning and
Right.
developing, not
Mhm.
having as many resources for onboarding and ramping and support. So I'm really
Retention.
happy to hear that companies, and hopefully like we're learning lessons, like we're assessing the gaps from last year. That's what
Right.
I really hope is like, we've talked, and this is a whole other topic, but we've talked so much about that cycle of hiring recruiters and then hiring a ton and then
Mhm.
letting go recruiters and then needing to hire them again. So I mean that's one thing, and then hopefully people are learning from maybe retention suffering last year because there wasn't enough learning and development opportunities and onboarding support. So I do hope people, I think 2024 was a year of kind of learning. I hope
Yeah.
people are kind of looking back, like assessing gaps, seeing what went well, seeing what could potentially go better this year. And I do think it's kind of informing the market so far.
I could not agree with you more. I do think a lot of lessons were learned last year. And listen, like it was a tight market, right? Like we went through a lot from an economic standpoint. It made sense that organizations were making decisions in some capacity. I can't
Yeah.
speak for things as a whole, but in some capacities, making decisions to do a little bit more with a little bit less. But I think, that mind frame is kind of shifting now because we are seeing some positive growth and momentum, and we're recognizing that we can't always stay in that space of doing more with less. So it's important to build. And I think if organizations are looking to grow, doing that at a feasible scalability and making sure that like the ramping up of their employees is just as enriched as the retention programs and the learning and development programs that they have for folks. Like those are things that are super important. So like you said, I think it was a year of learning, and I'm hoping that this is the year we see all of those lessons kind of play out and come to fruition.
Hope so. And so far, yes. So we'll keep you informed. Maybe even like one of these next shows, we can, like we said, Hirewell has other practices. There's a reason we each specialize in our own things because we are very good at what we do specifically. So maybe in one of our next shows, we can have somebody from like the tech recruiting team to hear what's going on with them, because we could try to update you. We just like, they are truly market experts, and this is our lane where we're market experts. So we'll have to bring one of them in.
I think you're so right. And I think we've learned our lesson too. Like we do not speak the technical language very well. We've tried to, and I'm pretty sure we haven't pronounced things correctly many shows. So yeah, we definitely need to bring in an expert to talk about it so that we don't make fools of ourselves.
Oh no, and I certainly will. I'll like never forget one of my
Absolutely.
first weeks at Hirewell, like trying to like say one of the coding languages and someone like pinging me on the side, being like, "That's not
That's
how you say
not
it."
how you say it. Yeah.
And I am going to stick with go-to-market recruiting. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see just where we've
yeah,
come from the holidays to now being, gosh, almost in the last month of Q1, which is
likewise.
insane to think about. Things are moving quickly, but we're seeing a lot of positive things. So I'm excited about the momentum that we're seeing in the job market. I know you are too. We're both really hopeful that this means there's going to be continued momentum throughout the rest of the year. We'll obviously keep everyone posted on what we continue to see and learn throughout each quarter, but for all intents and purposes, things are looking pretty good in Q1.
Things are looking good. Let us know if you have any other questions. We're always happy to, chat about just what's going on in the market. So
Absolutely.
all we got.
Absolutely. Well, I'll see you soon. See you in what, 2 weeks? Next week? Is
See
it
you
next
like,
week
yeah,
already?
next
Next
weekend. That is
week.
it. That
I
is a
love it.
wrap, y'all, for this week's episode of the Hirewell Update. Thank you all so much for joining us. As a reminder, you can find all of our content at talentinsights.hirewell.com. Or if you'd like to learn more about Hirewell and our service offerings, check out our website. It's www.hirewell.com. Tune in next time. We will see y'all soon.
See you soon.
Bye.